Hello, my name is Emmeline Shepard, and my historiography topic is Italian immigration in the 18 to 1900s, specifically 1880 to 1910, and how opinions of it have changed in the last century. My working thesis is that Italian immigration has long been discussed, written about, studied, and it has been turned into movies and gag bits, comedy and tragedy. But what's the truth? Many authors and historians have studied and researched every aspect of Italian immigration, what it was like at the time, how opinions have changed through time, what their arguments are, and what point they're trying to bring to light. Um, I currently have background from Nancy Foner and Io Rizzo. Luciano Rizzo. Um, Nancy Foner's Ellis Island to JFK talks about two different waves of immigration, uh, and how one kind of led to similarities in the other. So it's more of a chain immigration. The first one being Italians and Russian Jews that came between 1880 and 1910. Um, her basis is that Italian immigrants came because they were struggling financially, which I'll talk about more in the economy section. But she basically calls them birds of flight, um, which means they migrated to America and then they stayed, boosted the economy, and then they went home. Economics, again, Nancy Foner and also Coulter. Nancy Miss Foner talks about the Italian populace of New York, and her idea that immigrants didn't pick and choose what they had. They came with skills and abilities, and then they were assigned jobs or they found jobs based on that on arrival. Um, Coulter talks about the economic burden with Italian immigration, talking about how the Italians in Cleveland uh, didn't like taxation. That they came, they worked to earn money, they got heavily taxed, so then they moved home. So again, also similar to the birds of flight, arriving, working, leaving. Both of them are specific about that and cover both of that. Religion. So Italians are mostly Roman Catholic. Nancy Foner talked about religious discrimination with schools, depending on which school and where they were. Um, I'll talk about more of that with race. Coulter covered Roman Catholicism of Italian immigrants, but that they were not Roman Catholic first. They were Italian first, meaning that they um, aligned themselves more with Italian, being Italian than being Roman Catholic, and they oftentimes didn't agree. He also talks about Protestantism in Catholicism, which started with Protestantism and then led eventually to Baptist Italians. And Rizzo covers also he covers the Catholic background and the move from uh, the movement away from the Roman Catholic Church. So three different, all connected through Roman Catholicism, but the slow progression and move away from um, Roman Catholicism. The next topic is gender. My only source for this currently is Nancy Foner, but she talks a lot about it. She covers uh, women following men to um, America, but also working as much, if not more, on occasions, and also covers women's freedoms, but also their restrictions. Um, I'm considering whether or not to keep this slide. But Foner also covers new wave immigration and how it is different from old wave immigration, and like how women are more educated now than they were then, based on um, based on liberties and freedoms that old wave immigration earned that new wave now gets. Race, again, Nancy Foner, in her book Ellis Island to JFK, covers a lot of topics. In this one, it's the treatment of the Italian immigrants and the racism levied against them. Um, she covers the idea of them being considered not white to then being considered white, and whether or not that was true assimilation or not. Um, she covers the perceptions of race and the changes in them. Luciano J. Iorizzo covers the damaging image of the mafia and what it did to the Italian people and the racism that it brought up. Um, and he uses court cases actually to prove stigmas against Italian immigrants, specifically talking about a lynching that killed dozens of Italian prisoners because of the death of one police officer in New Orleans. I have a couple more people that I need to cover there, like Cohen and Brooke and Fish. Um, I plan to look at how has race changed from then to now. Like, do we view different immigrants now as Italian and Irish and Germans were viewed, then non-whites, whites, how slavery ties into the mix, um, and so on and so forth. The last topic is assimilation. Um, with assimilation, uh, Luciano covers the idea of the Italian people like taking the stereotypes like the mafia or violence or um, criminals, like they take it in stride and they either make media out of it and they cover that. He also talks about whether or not assimilation is the diluting of a heritage that is like bold and proud, and that he's not sure if it's a good or a bad thing. And then Coulter um, talks about in his journal about Italians of Cleveland that if Italians were willing to fight and die for America, then they were Americans no matter what. It didn't matter if they stayed in America. It didn't matter if they came just to earn money and go back to Italy. If they were to fight and die for America, it made them American. So his was a very patriotic view. My current conclusion, and it's subject to change, is that Italian immigration, according to historians throughout time, was essential to the growth of America. The truth of Italian immigration, however, is entirely different than what Americans today have come to know. So the idea of what we know of Americans, of Italians, is totally separate from what they actually were. And currently, Foner, Coulter, and Iorizzo cover that in a multitude of ways through economy, gender, race, religion, stereotypes, assimilation, and all these other things.